So you're thinking about moving overseas for a change in lifestyle and new experiences. Or you just need a change in setting for a while to reboot your life, and you're looking at slow traveling in overseas destinations. Both the full-time expat life and the long-term slow travel approach are a great way to reboot your life. Living in a new environment for a longer period with new experiences and perceptions that unfold over time will reset your attitudes and perceptions. It can be a worthwhile investment. So, you may think it sounds like it would be fun to try out, but could be too big of a change. You may miss home and friends too much. You may be hesitant taking the next step. Here's an easy first step you can try. Become a slow traveler in your own country first, and try experiencing living for weeks or months in a place that's completely different from your current home to see how it works for you. Seeing if you like the experience of a longer-term change in setting will help you get a better idea if an overseas move will work out for you. It can give you the confidence to take the next steps to making a big overseas trip happen. Or you may come back from the domestic trip thinking it's not really worth the trouble and adjust your overseas plans. Or it may give you the experience you're looking for in a way that's much simpler than making a big overseas move. Living in a new place for an extended period in a manner that's less risky and less costly may be just as rewarding. It may end up being the perfect treatment for your wanderlust. Hear me out on this. For years, when we traveled around the US, we would visit various destinations, and we'd often think, this would be a great place to live someday. Like New Orleans. We used to go to New Orleans in the spring when our daughter was off from school for Easter vacation week, stay in an apartment in a warehouse district, go to the French Quarter and the clubs on Frenchmen Street, rent bikes and ride around the city, take tours in the surrounding areas, and drive around to see more of Louisiana. It usually was a lot of fun, and on each trip we thought about what it would be like to live there for a year or so. That same thought came up when we visited other places that we liked, like the Florida Keys or Sedona, Arizona. Those destinations were completely different than the suburbs of Washington, D.C. We thought that it would be a fun adventure to live there for a few months and get in sync with the local lifestyle. In the past, we had access to a mountaintop family cabin in the Catskill Mountains, and we would stay there for weeks at a time. It was a place where the only sounds you would hear was the wind through the pines and an occasional chainsaw off in the distance, where if you took a drive at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, you wouldn't see another car for 20 minutes. It would usually take about a week or so to adjust to the pace and environment, to a point where the setting would start impacting our attitudes and perceptions. And the longer we could stay, the bigger the impact of the experience. These types of experiences also came up when we visited other countries. We became intrigued with the thought of what it would be like to live for an extended period in places like the Netherlands or Switzerland. Many of the places we visited seemed to offer an opportunity to experience a new lifestyle that could have a profound impact on our lives. And that thought would remain long after we returned home. So we ended up exploring making the expat move to Portugal. But in the end, the amount of effort and risk that move required seemed a bit too much. So we scaled back to keeping a home in the US and shifted to traveling overseas for a few times a year to live in an apartment for weeks or months at a time to get a more intimate experience of the city and country. Those trips are usually great, and we learn a lot from each experience, but they did have some downsides. They can take a lot of work to arrange, they can end up being pretty costly, and you can't bring much with you on the airplane, which makes a difference if you're staying for a month or more. You usually have minimal access to a car, and there can be language issues, and you're far away from your responsibilities at home. In the end, issues like that can wear you out and make you happy to finally head home. So lately, we started looking at whether US destinations would work out for us as slow travel destinations to get a similar new lifestyle experience for less cost and effort. Rent a furnished apartment for a month or more in a place we always wanted to experience on a longer-term basis. It's like the snowbirds from the Northeast US who travel south to spend the winter months in Florida. But we were looking for locations that were less vacation-oriented, places that may take a bit more work to really appreciate. Or go to a vacation destination in the off-season when it's less crowded, less expensive, and you can get an experience more like a local resident. It's also basically following the digital nomad lifestyle, while keeping a home base to come back to. Or if you're between homes, or coming up at the end of your time at your current home, it can be an opportunity to try out living in a few new places to learn what fits you best. So we started checking out the short-term furnished apartment rental sites like Airbnb and FurnishedFinder.com and some local real estate sites to see what was available in some of the places we liked, and we usually found some suitable furnished apartments for reasonable prices. For example, looking at booking a few weeks ahead in June of 2024, the Garden District in New Orleans had some good options. I found one-bedroom apartments beginning at around $1,500 a month and two bedrooms beginning around $2,000. The apartments seemed to be located on safe, quiet residential streets that were close to the restaurants and bars on Magazine Street and St. Charles Avenue, and based on the photos, they looked comfortable enough for a monthly stay. And compared to Washington, D.C., New Orleans is pretty much a foreign country. It got us thinking, this would be a lot easier than a long overseas trip. We could rent a place for a few months, load up the car with whatever we needed to make the stay less disruptive and more fulfilling, and drive to the destination from home. We both still work, so we bring computers with us when we travel. I like to use 32-inch monitors on my notebook, and I like to noodle on the guitar, and we like to ride bikes, so we can bring those types of things with us on the back of the Subaru wagon, along with anything else we might need. We could even bring our dog on this trip, and that makes the longer stays much more livable and comfortable. And having a car at the destination is a game changer, compared with relying mostly on public transport when traveling overseas. It gives you more flexibility in apartment selection, since you don't need to be on a bus route or walking distance to grocery stores or other services. And there's no international flights or jet lag to deal with, it's quicker to arrange, you can get faster internet access, and being in the US makes it easier to stop back at home if we needed to. Take a short flight back to check out our home and take care of anything that came up, and then fly back. And it's a lot less costly overall. No expensive flights or the other miscellaneous costs that can add up over a typical overseas trip. It could be a good way to get many of the attractions of overseas slow travel with less risk and annoyances, live for an extended period in some new locations, experience the local lifestyles, and reboot your life. We thought about the domestic destinations that appealed to us. They were mostly places we had been before that we wished we had more time to explore in depth. We were focusing on the eastern half of the US, so the drive would only be a day or two. For us, New Orleans would be great for a more in-depth experience of the southern culture and food, and to explore the coast from Houston to Mobile. Or deep in the Adirondack Mountains for nature, hiking, and side trips to Canada. Or the west coast of Florida and the Keys in the fall. Or maybe make the long drive to Sedona, Arizona and spend a few months hiking. We're planning on trying a slow travel trip in the US later in the year. We'll report back on our experience in a later video. Maybe this approach can work out for you too. But if you want to take this approach, it's critical that you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and subscribe to our Notes from the Road newsletter that focuses on the issues of interest to people in midlife and beyond. Use the link in the description. And thanks for watching.